In this video, we're going to do a comparison between TCP and UDP. And on this first slide, I have a graphic representation of the bits of information required to send a TCP versus a UDP packet. And so here on the left, this is a TCP packet. And here on the right is a UDP packet. And now everywhere where you see the 16 bits or 16 over here or 32, this is the amount of bits of information that we have to add on. And because TCP is very robust, it has a lot of extra information on here. And so, for example, our sequence number for our packets to make sure they get there, 32 bits right there. Another 32 bits of information for our acknowledgement number to acknowledge that we received the information. And then it also has some additional information in here as well to make sure that it gets there. So if you add all this up, there's a lot of extra information that we need to send across the network. Now let's look at UDP. We just have our source and destination information are linked and a very simple checksum to make sure that the data is not corrupt. And so if we look at this, we have a total of 64 bits of information added on. Over here, just adding these two together, that's 64, not adding on any of this other information. So you can see why people want to use UDP when they can, because it's a lot more efficient than TCP in regards to bandwidth cost. So when we want reliability and we want assurance to make sure our data gets there, there's a cost associated with it. There's a monetary cost in regards to making sure that our network scales up with it, but there's also a bandwidth cost as well. So it's going to take up bandwidth in regards to using TCP over UDP. Now, we already talked about this, but we're going to go ahead and do a bit of a recap. So, you only want to use TCP when you need to have data sent reliably and you want to make sure it gets there. And so, for example, maybe file transfers online or online baking sessions online. In other instances, if you don't need it to be reliable, if you just want it to be fast and economical, then you're going to want to use UDP. And a good example that we did in our previous video was our voice over IP phone call, where it's going to get the job done. We don't need TCP, and UDP is going to be working just fine. So, just to sum up, in certain instances, we want reliability. We want that retransmission of data. We want our session set up before we do any sort of communicating. We want to use TCP. But on other instances, for example, live streaming data, where we're not worried about all that and something like UDP is going to get the job done, then we're going to go ahead and we want to choose UDP. So that's going to go ahead and conclude this lecture. If you have any questions about TCP and UDP, please let me know. If not, thanks for watching and we'll see you at the next lecture.